I'm so glad you guys came back. This is Sarita Talks, and it's always so dear to my heart to have someone with the lived experience, someone who has been in the same places as me and is willing to come and tell her story and what she's doing now. And let me tell you, hands down, this is the best feeling. The best feeling. So let me turn it over to Amanda Thomas. Please tell us a little bit about you and what you're doing.
Okay. Hey everybody. Like she said, my name is Amanda Thomas, and I definitely have quite a long backstory, but just a quick overview would be I knew that I had a lot of struggles in grade school. And that's where things really started for me.
Mhm.
Um Third grade I was held back, and I then labeled myself as stupid. And so then that carried through my life, and that was the conversation that I constantly had with me. And I didn't know how destructive that was by not reaching out and just sharing with my parents or my sister or anybody. I just held that
Well, who
deficit
knows how to do that
feeling.
at third and fourth grade? Go
Yeah,
ahead.
how to
Yeah.
do that. And so then, we fast forward to high school. That made me very susceptible to people pleasing and finding my self worth and value in other people's opinions. And, I just never really had an identity. And I think that probably was a big part of what led me into being okay with using.
Mhm.
And once I used, it was off to the races for me.
Yeah.
That chemical imbalance was just shifted, and it just took off from there. You
I
know,
think a lot of us start in drugs to fit in.
yes,
Do you feel the same way?
that and to numb out,
Mhm. Yeah.
or to have this false sense of self. And that's a lot of what it was for me. I found a lot of value in really living outside of myself. But what
Mhm.
I didn't realize that entire time was I was giving my control to everybody. At the time, it was okay because I felt like, hey, if stuff goes south, it ain't my fault,
Yeah.
you know. But that doesn't work,
I
for the
know.
long haul, the longevity of life. It just doesn't work.
Mm-mm.
Lands you in places and around people that, for me, in 2014, uh, I was with someone that committed a crime that was violent. And because I was there, uh,
Mhm.
I was in just as much trouble as he was.
That's a
You know,
thing.
I mean, and don't get me wrong, I've done way my fair share of things that I could have been convicted for and probably should have been convicted for. But this particular situation was somebody that was he was violent, and I caught the same charges that he did, and I did a lot of time in prison because of that.
Let
You
me
know,
tell you, that's a whole separate episode. And I really want my audience to perk up that even though she might have done some things before, whoever commits the crime, if you're right with them, you're going down too. I
that's
want to
right.
talk about in this moment a woman named Tanya Cummings, who her brother on his when it was time for him to get killed by the state, said she had nothing to do with it. So that's a whole nother episode because there's innocent people in the penitentiary. And even though you might have done something before, you didn't do that. And how
Right.
much time did you get?
3 years. Well, I
Three
I
years.
I received 3 6-year sentences, but they ran concurrent.
Well, let me tell you,
So
I'm glad you broached that issue because we don't talk about that enough. And like I said, that's a whole nother episode.
that's
So
right.
now we've been involved in this crime we didn't commit just by simply being there. Pick up what happens from there.
Yeah. So I surrendered my freedom. I was out on bond for 2 years, and then I surrendered my freedom, and that's really that's really when everything started to become very real.
Hmm.
And I was able to sit back and take a very long, hard look at myself because my feelings were coming back. I was starting to get sober, and I was realizing that this is now my life. This is
Yeah.
now my address. And
Hmm.
this is, what home is for me right now
Is the penitentiary,
is the penitentiary.
right? Is
Yep,
prison. That's what she's saying. And that is a hard learning curve.
it really is, and in those moments, so let me back up for a second. I went in
Hmm.
with that delusional state of being that I was going to be able to take a whole bunch of drugs into prison with me. And I was just going to be the kingpin, and I was going to have everything locked up and strapped
Yeah.
in there,
Uh-huh.
I was going to stay high for as long as I could. And it was very, very delusional thinking.
Hmm.
But that also is just a reflection of how truly sick I was. I was very sick in my disease at that time. And so I ended up getting caught, and I didn't even last 24 hours before I was in solitary confinement.
What? I
Yes.
did not know that. What happened? Oh,
Yes.
you got caught bringing drugs into the facility.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
that. Mhm.
yeah, so actually got it out. I got it out in
Mhm.
R&O, and the whole R&O was, reeking. And
Here's
I'm
the
the
thing.
first
The
person
whole
there.
R&O
So
was shaking like a stripper because that's what we said. We had it shaking like a stripper.
that's
Go ahead.
so it really didn't take long for them to figure out, who it was. And so that didn't go well for me.
Mhm.
So I'm in solitary confinement, and it was terrifying. It
Mhm.
was a real eye-opening, terrifying experience. And I remember saying to myself, all right, I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to do this, because I'll be damned if I'm going to lose my mind. I'm
That's
just
the
not going to
thing.
lose my mind. And,
Mhm.
for people that haven't been in solitary confinement, you can feel the evil. You can
Mm.
feel the hurt and pain of everybody that's screaming and yelling and
Oh, that's
up
that.
all
Yeah.
hours of the day and night. And they're just in there losing their mind or talking about a
Mhm.
bunch of nonsense, and nobody's really trying to find their self and
No. And if
really
they
do
are, it's hard.
right, do
Mhm.
some self-reflection. And what I found solitude in was writing.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't give me paper. And I finally talked to CO into slide me a pen until I had money on my books to go to the store
Mhm.
and get some paper. But that takes a while,
It does.
So what are you going to do? Sit there and twiddle your thumbs? They give you 2 books a week. I can read one of those. I can read both of those in a day,
Yeah.
So what I did was I walked corner to corner half the time, and I wrote half the time. I copied
Mm.
the Bible. And as I was copying the Bible, I was having so many different revelations. And I finally reached a point that I was just so broken. I was so defeated. And I really truly was able to see what all I had given away. I had just
Mm.
given it away. And I was crying. I remember I was crying so hard one day. And, the COs down there, they don't care. They do their rounds and they do not care. And I was crying so hard this one time that a CO came around, and he looked inside and he's like, "Are you okay?" And I didn't even acknowledge him, right? I
Mhm.
had just completely lost my bearings. I lost hope. I couldn't see past the way that I was feeling. I
Yeah.
couldn't see anything. I couldn't see an out date. I couldn't see brighter days ahead. I couldn't see anything.
Even
And
out here, who has felt that way? Who has felt that way where you
yeah,
couldn't see past your situation? Tell us how it get. Keep on telling us how that goes.
Yeah, so on the 45th day, I'll never forget, I had finally started praying because it had been a very long time uh, that I was in an intimate relationship with God. You know, I had a part-time relationship with God. I would bring him in and then I would throw him out. I would bring him in when I needed him and I would throw him out, you know, and he was just always there. He was always there, just waiting on me. And so I cried out on the 45th day of being down in the hole, and I was very loud, and I was screaming, you know, God, why? Like, why me? Like, why did it take this? Why? And, you know, he whispered so softly and so beautifully in my ear. He said, "My child, I'm protecting you from you."
Oh,
And
deep.
in that moment, I realized I needed saving.
Mm.
I needed saving,
Amen. And let me tell
you
you about
know?
solitary confinement. In Chillicothe Correctional Center, we've had people who have passed away by their own hand
That's right.
in solitary confinement.
3 months.
Someone that I've
Right.
known has, and it was sad because she was in her 20s and it just
Mhm.
was too much.
Yeah.
So when people talk about being in a prison of their own mind, that is real and it is painful and it is depressing. But when you are in a prison within a prison, which has been outlawed in so many countries,
Yes.
it is a different type of experience. There are
It
people that spend years, and when they let you out for that 1 hour of rec, maybe twice a week, you're in a cage.
That's right. You're
Let that
handcuffed to the
resonate.
bathroom. Or excuse me, you're handcuffed to the shower.
Yeah.
You know,
You're
you're
handcuffed everywhere you go.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
now I don't want to stop you because I want to talk about this transformation that you were able to let enter into your mind, your heart, your body, your soul in such a
Yeah.
dark place. So we're on 45. We're on day
Yeah.
45.
I'm
How long were you there
45. I you
in
know,
solitary confinement? How long
five
altogether?
and a half months.
So we're
Five,
on day 45.
we're on day 45. And so from that moment after I had that moment with God, and it was a true spiritual awakening for me. You know, my
Mhm.
spirit just felt more alive, I think, than I've ever felt in my entire life. I didn't
Amen.
even know that you could feel that way. You know, that's how much it was different from anything that I had ever experienced before. And so I just started praying, and I began to have hope again. I started seeing life from a different set of eyes. And one thing that I learned how to do that I enjoyed more than anything was daydream. And I
Mhm.
didn't even realize that that was a thing. You know, I didn't
Mhm.
even realize that was a thing. And I would sit there and daydream, and these stories would come in my mind and I would write them down. Um, God would give me dreams that were absolutely beautiful, and I would wake up and I would write them down. And I journaled every single day I was down there. And to have that today to reflect back on, and the things that I'm going to use it for, you know, in my future, that's going to impact other people.
That's
Uh,
right.
you know, it's really made me um, know that there was a purpose so much greater, even then, than what my eyes were able to see. You know, and he showed me what a amazing writer I am,
That's right.
all because of him. You know, I mean, he put that gift in me.
So when
And
the book comes out, you're going to come back on, right?
yes,
You're going to
ma'am.
come back on and tell us all
Yes,
about it. And
ma'am.
I listen, this is so powerful. I don't want anyone to miss this YouTube channel. So tell us about your YouTube channel and what type of content, because everybody's talking about content creation. I'm a
Yes.
believer, and I feel like the statement that you made about how you could help others or what you could do. Tell us about the YouTube and how can
So,
we find it?
okay. So my YouTube is Living My Truth, and I am going to talk about multiple different things actually, because I feel like there's a lot that leads us to the places where we land.
Yes.
There's just a multitude of reasons why. And so if we can just peel back some of the surface level things that are going on in your life, if we can just peel them back a little bit and take a deeper look at them, then you can actually find where it's coming from.
Hmm.
Because if we don't address what's really brought us there, then we're never really going to actually get through it.
You
You
can
know,
never have a solution if you can't identify the problem.
no, you can't change what you don't acknowledge, right?
That's right.
You
Now you're
just
doing something
can't.
super important, super powerful, and it has to do with the fentanyl crisis.
Yes,
So we're leaving a lot of parts of this story out, but that's okay because she's coming back. And
yes,
also, the story is on her channel. Now, I thought it was Living My Truth 333.
it is. You're right.
There we go.
Yeah,
We want to make sure
you're
they
right.
can find it. In this
Yes,
moment, I want you to tell people because people, like I say, everything's cyclical. It doesn't have to be about being in prison physically. You can be
right.
in a prison that is mental. So
And
you
that
need to tune in and see what she's talking about. But tell us about fentanyl crisis, how you're helping after spending time in prison. We're helpers. Go ahead, hon.
that's right. And the
Hmm.
reason why is because we went through this for a reason.
Hmm.
Because I said to God years ago, I'll be damned if the time that I spent away from my child, the devastation that he went through, my parents being up all hours of the night,
Hmm.
turning the TV up to make sure it wasn't me in a hotel room that had been murdered or OD'd and died, which I'm a survivor of many, many things, as you are as well.
Hmm.
But I said, I'll be damned if it's going to have been in vain. No,
That's
ma'am.
right.
No, ma'am. You know,
Right.
and I found purpose in my pain. And I don't spend time speaking about things that have no substance and no meaning. I wasted so much time in the streets and just doing things that really produce no amazing or fruitful results. They
Yeah.
were actually just adding to the problem. And
Hmm.
now I want to add to the solution, and that's what I'm doing with the fentanyl crisis that is killing our children. They're killing our loved ones, our brothers,
Hmm.
our sisters, our cousins, our aunts, our uncles, you name it. Fentanyl is killing all of us.
And it's
And
almost in every drug, if
it,
not every drug.
yeah, it is now. It's in Xanax. It's in, they're making these perk 30s
Mm.
that, well, they're fake perk 30s that they're pressed pills. They look exactly like them. And
Mm.
these kids are buying them off of Snapchat and they're
Oh
being
my God.
delivered to their homes while their parents are asleep, or, they just don't know that somebody has dropped off a pill, and they find them in their bedroom asleep. And the um the graphicness of what a parent witnesses, no parent and no human being, no EMS, no police officer, no one should have to witness another human being looking that way due to an overdose, and this is actually not even an overdose, it's a poisoning.
Yeah.
And it's terrorism. Honestly, it's terrorism.
Yeah.
And so that, I could go on about that for a very long time. um, Narcan saved my life,
Oh,
and
amen.
CPR saved my life. If when I overdosed, if that person wouldn't have done CPR on me, and then the EMS get there and him be willing to call, and not afraid
That's
of
the
himself,
thing.
you
Yeah.
know trouble and leaving me for dead,
Hmm.
which happens to so many people.
All the time.
Yeah. And that being what saved my
There goes
life.
my mic. Go ahead.
Yeah. After
Well,
being dead for 4 minutes,
Jesus.
and the EMS, one of them saying, you want to call it, and the other one saying, let's try one more time. I don't take my life lightly. And I don't
Mhm.
take other people's children's loved ones' lives lightly either. And that's why I feel like, I work as a substance abuse counselor in a harm reduction clinic. And I know that that's a very controversial subject for a lot of people.
Mhm.
But when you see and witness a lot of the things that I do in people, they just aren't there yet. So we
Here's the
got,
thing. Let me just interject and say this. Whatever it takes to keep somebody alive,
that's
okay?
right.
And I used to say this, and I've said it on a couple different shows. Everybody who's been in the penitentiary for a long period of time, there's somebody that they know, if not, it's them that wants to judge when someone comes in with less time and they come in and
Mm,
out, which is recidivism. Okay, recidivism isn't me that served 14 and a half years. It isn't Amanda with her 3 years. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't.
that's right.
However, when you give somebody 6 months, 3 years, sometimes 5 years, that drug addiction didn't go anywhere. They might want to, a lot of times they do want to get out and do the right thing. It
Yeah.
just isn't, it's not in the trajectory, and we pray that it is. However,
Yes.
I've prided myself on never being jealous that somebody else, and I used to tell a lot of people I know that had life sentence, don't you do that to them. We only have one judge. Okay. And you are not their judge. And here's another thing, don't block your blessings because somebody's getting the opportunity that you haven't. Now, this is in the penitentiary. So here's another thing. If this is where I'm leading to, if Suboxone, if methadone can save their life until they get to another point, then you need to realize that if your cousin, your child, someone is doing something that is, could kill them like that, be
Yeah.
happy that they're utilizing your services.
Yes.
Now,
And that's one of my major reasons for wanting to do this. I want to focus with people that are willing
yeah.
to have an open mind and to listen, not listen to respond, because that's completely different.
Mhm.
And I want to talk to people, not at them. I want to teach other people how to do the same. There are ways that we can communicate effectively, and then there's ways that other people try to communicate, and really it has no results, no solution. If anything, it just adds to the problem. We want people to get to their bitter ends, and we don't want it to be death. So how
Yeah.
do we do that? What does that look like? You know, and those are the ways that I feel like if somebody is open-minded enough and willing to hear me out, I will be able to help you get to that place with your child, your loved one. And the I will tell you this though, the toughest aspect of someone that is in their active addiction is that if they're not ready, they're just not ready.
I
And if the
know.
pain has not gotten great enough for them, they're not going to stop. Because let me tell you something, this is another thing that I want to teach parents and loved ones about is enabling and codependency. Because what feels right and what comes natural to do most of the time is not the right way to go about it. And so we might as well be planning their funeral. You might as well just be go ahead, put some money towards a casket, X, Y, and Z, because you're planning their funeral as you're paying their phone bill, as you're giving them a warm place to stay. Because no addict, no person that is drug chemically addicted is going
Mhm.
to stop using because they feel like it.
And
The
it's sad because people don't
pain-
have any type of, if you don't know it,
If you don't
like
know,
they say about the ghetto, if you've never been there, don't go there because you wouldn't understand it.
that's
So they
right.
don't understand. They
Consequence,
don't.
right. So, it's if nobody feels the wrath of their actions, they're not going to stop. If I wouldn't see, it doesn't have to take prison for everybody to
True.
get it. For me, it did because I wasn't going to stop. And God knew that I wasn't going to stop. And so he loved me
Too.
enough. Yes,
Me
he
too.
loved me enough to set me aside all by myself so I could rest a while and just abide in his peace that he so freely not only gave to me, but he would give to anybody that welcomed it in.
Yeah.
He
And
met
it
me.
doesn't have to be drugs. It could
Yeah,
be men. It could be situations we put in. I say often, and I hate it, I am an impulse actor. And that had nothing to do with my crime, just all. And I was, before we started recording, I had a conversation with Amanda, and I was telling her that I've always woke up on 1000 ever since
Yeah.
being a child.
Yeah.
Yes. And my mother, I take care of her now. She'll tell you. My friends ask her, has she been like this her whole life? And she's like, yes. Even in the penitentiary, like,
Yeah.
I'm
You are.
ready.
Oh,
I
yeah.
wake up on 1000. So it could even be that, God now, after sitting me down, it took prison. I said a prayer. I said, God, help me to be a good mother, get me off drugs, and get me away from this
Yes.
man. He did all three things, just not
Yeah.
how I expected. So,
Right.
you could be that impulse actor just making bad decisions in your life. You could be in that bad relationship just hanging on. You could be, dealing with personal inner demons, depression, anxiety.
And there are ways to overcome that.
Yeah.
There are truly ways to overcome that. But once again, if you say, how do I do this? You have to be honest, you have to be open
Mhm.
minded, and you have to be willing. And you also have to just say to yourself, you know what? I don't have all the right answers.
Yeah.
Because obviously, the way that I was doing it wasn't
Mhm.
working. It
No.
wasn't, you know, I was homeless for 3 years,
Mm.
sticking a needle in my arm underneath a bridge, riding a bicycle with a backpack and a dog in a bag. Like, how humiliating was that? Well, at the time, it wasn't, because I didn't care, because I was outside of my body, I was outside of my mind. I was not there, I was not present.
Yeah.
But when you look back on that, you think, wow, that is truly how broken that was, how broken I was, because I couldn't care. I was so out there, I could not care.
Because your driving force was the cop, and
That's
continue on
right.
this numbing, continue on this lifestyle. You know what? I was telling somebody the other day, if they had a 1-800 no drugs, I would have called it.
Yes.
Nobody for real, when they go down that rabbit hole, they don't want to live that way. It's just you become, like you said, oblivious, because the driving force. And I hated it too when people are like, oh, drug addicts don't love their kids. We love our kids.
That's
We
right.
can't do any better at this moment. And until you've been there, you don't understand it.
And
I want to have, yeah,
just,
go
let
ahead.
me just say something about that, because you are so right.
Yeah.
I it did take me a lot of self-forgiveness to
Mhm.
get to that place, that I could not believe that I had abandoned my child for drugs.
Yeah.
Because
Totally.
honestly, that's the truth. I
Mhm.
abandoned him to get high. But when I made that decision, I had been sober for 3 years, a little over 3 years, and I made that decision to use. Um, I knew I wasn't going to stop. I was like, oh Lord, like, I don't know what I've done, but I can see that this is not going to stop. And so I had called my ex-husband, and I told him, look, I relapsed over the weekend, and I don't see myself stopping. And I had to make a decision in that moment to put him second in order to really be putting him first.
Yep.
And I had to be okay with it. If not, he would have been in trap house after trap house,
Mhm.
experiencing things. So it's like, what's worse, abandon him or bring him through death?
What we saw other people doing with their kids too, out of
Right.
that delusion that they're better off.
Dead. And neither choice is good.
No. Well,
And
no, I'm gonna stop you right there. You made the right choice.
I did. You're right. In that moment, out of the two options that I had, I made the best choice.
Yes, you did.
I really
Now,
did.
we've come to a half hour. So, I want you to agree in this moment, you're gonna come back and tell us, because iron sharpens iron.
That's right. We
Yeah,
got
so we need to
another
know
and
more
another.
about the whole, but we also need to go to your YouTube channel, because I see motivation, inspiration, and it applies to everything. So
Yes.
it is Living My Truth 333.
Yes.
Amanda, lead us out and tell us whatever you want us to know about
Okay.
you and what you're doing in your
So,
journey.
okay. So April 1st will mark 5 years that I've been out of the penitentiary. Yes.
Yeah.
And so I've made a promise to myself and to my family and to God that I am going to make myself available when opportunities present themselves. I want to be present.
Excuse me.
And I don't want to miss the miracle. I don't want to miss it. You know, I missed so many before. And I live my life today happy, joyous, and free, no matter what, no matter if I have money, no matter if I have
Mhm.
a bad day, you know, no matter what, which I don't have bad days. I have maybe a bad moment, but I don't have bad days.
That's right.
It ain't gonna last all day. I might just have a little something. But I want to teach people the importance of how to treat themselves. Because when I started learning the importance of loving me, I realized just how much control I actually truly do have. And there's really no weapon on this earth that could ever be formed against me that's going to prosper.
Man.
No way.
Amen. Well, that's a mic drop. Amanda Thomas, Living My Truth 333. Okay? This is real. This is gritty. There-
Yeah,
there's things, you know what I'm saying? So as soon as you are able and you have time, come back.
I
Talk.
will. Let me tell you something. This is just the beginning. Okay. There is so much more to unpack and unfold. It's like a lot of different topics that really they deserve their own entity, you know, and their own time and dedication to each thing. And so I appreciate you letting me come on here and share some of my story with you. And I look forward to doing it again.
Thank you. Gratitude. All
Yeah.
right. Come back next week. There's more.
Gotcha.